Welcome everyone to our panel event titled Being LGBT Today, A Global Perspective. It really is a great pleasure to be chairing today's event, and to say that I'm excited really is the understatement of the century. I can't wait for the conversation that will unfold. The reason we have titled this event Being LGBT Today, A Global Perspective is because though each of us here today has a connection with Wales, we all come from different parts of the world. So our perspectives and stories are indeed global. We must also remember that while the LGBT community does enjoy equality and protection here in Wales, and indeed the UK, globally, the rights of LGBT people are far from secure. There are at least 12 countries that can impose the death penalties on those who are accused of same-sex sexual acts. Some of us here today come from those countries. For anyone who is watching this panel event, if you consider yourself to be a humanitarian, or if you feel uncomfortable with labels, if you are someone who just cares about human lives, you will listen to our stories. I hope you will appreciate why having a global perspective of the LGBT community is an essential starting point in the path towards meaningful change. To provide this perspective, we are joined by an extraordinary group of individuals from Glitter Cymru. Before they introduce themselves, I will say a little bit about who I am and what Glitter Cymru represents. My name is Numair Masud. I am the treasurer for Glitter Cymru. I'm a gay man from Pakistan. I grew up in a country where being a member of the LGBT community is a criminal offense, potentially punishable by execution. Though I originally came to the UK to pursue my education, and indeed I continue to do so, as I'm currently completing my PhD in life sciences, I claimed asylum. I was successful and am now classed as a refugee. One of the cruelest ironies I faced is that I wasn't unhappy when I was in Pakistan. I was unhappy when I traveled to the UK and experienced what freedom tasted like. We often don't realize what we are deprived of until we experience the very thing we were missing all along. It was here in Cardiff that I discovered Vish, Glitter Cymru's founder, over a coffee in 2016. It was over a rather insipid soya latte that Vish proposed they wanted to set up a BAME LGBT group to provide a safe space. They asked if I wanted to be part of this endeavor. I confess fully that I was skeptical at first, as I wasn't sure whether isolating ourselves further was a good idea. But then after further reflection, I asked myself, why not have a safe space where people feel a sense of community and connectedness? If this makes people feel happy and build their confidence, I don't see the downside. The fundamental aim of Glitter Cymru has always been to amplify the voices of BAME LGBT individuals and provide social support wherever we can, and while doing so, also reaching out to allies to share our stories. You might be thinking, why is our group necessary? Why are we segregating ourselves? The truth is, many of our group attendees have experienced a great deal of exclusion and othering. For example, be it racism from the predominantly wider white LGBT community to homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia from people of our own communities. Don't just take our word for it. Recent research from Stonewall, a leading LGBT equality charity, found that 51% of BAME LGBT people had faced discrimination or poor treatment from the wider LGBT community. This issue was found to be greater for Black LGBT people, where the figure rose to 61%. Glitter came about after hearing the frustrations of BAME LGBT community members, of not feeling welcomed, understood, or represented by the wider LGBT community. To continue the spirit of Glitter Cymru and to amplify marginalized voices, I will now turn to our extraordinary panel members. So I'd like to begin now by asking all of you to spend about 2 to 3 minutes each introducing yourselves. And I'm not going to be sticking to a very strict format over here, so I'm just going to start with who I see first on my screen. Thania would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Thania Acaron, originally from Puerto Rico. I've been in the UK for 10 years. I am, first and foremost, I'm a dance movement psychotherapist. So I've been working with the LGBT plus community for about 10 years, focusing on trans groups and movement for well-being. And secondly, I'm an artist as well. So I co-lead an artist collective here in Wales called Flamingo with double F, which curates a queer performance, so stimulates more queer artistic voices here in Wales. And then thirdly, I am a lecturer at the Faculty of Creative Industries at the University of South Wales.
Thank you so much, Thania. Right next on my screen is the one and only Jia Wei. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Numair. My name is Jia Wei Lee. I'm 25 years old and my pronouns are he, she, they because I identify as non-binary. And for all of you who not necessarily are sure what non-binary means, it means like I identify neither on the male or female side of the spectrum, on the gender spectrum. I identify somewhere in between. So I came to Wales to study as an international student in the University of South Wales. And my sexual orientation is gay. And yeah. So coming from Malaysia, it's a predominantly Islamic country. So we are governed by the Sharia law in some of the states. And we also have Section 377 introduced by the British, which in which they can have the power to actually prison us or we can get whipping if we undergo some unnatural offenses. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much, Jia Wei. Next, we have Alvin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alvin. I identify as a trans man. My gender pronouns are he, him. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Saudi Arabia. And I graduated with baccalaureate degree in business administration. And now I live in Cardiff. That's it.
Thank you so much, Alvin.
Yeah,
and last but by no means least, Mujib. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, hi. My name is Abdul Mujib. So I'm originally from Nigeria. I identify as bisexual. So I sought asylum in the UK and I'm now a refugee. While in the UK, I've been passionately involved with youth support work, community activism, specifically with the groups Oops and Loops, Oasis World Choir, where we have used our voices to show support to end the violence against women and girls. Most recently, singing in the White Ribbon campaign that was held last year in Llandaff Cathedral. So I consider myself a people's person and just working towards being a role model, at least for community level, at least for now. In my free time, I'm passionate about sports and fitness. I am a father as well of a 4-year-old boy, Lucas. But that's me, really. Thank you, Numair.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Mujib. Now, what's very clear to me is, and I'm sure to all our viewers, is that we are truly global over here today. So I'd like to bring together some common themes about all of us. I'd like to hear about the global perspective of being LGBT+. However, before I do that, I couldn't help but notice that, well, I've known for a while that Mujib is a father, and it is Father's Day today. So I'd just like to start by saying Happy Father's Day, Mujib. And the first question is aimed at you. It has to be because it's Father's Day today. As a Black, bisexual, single father, could you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because we don't often hear about that. We don't often hear about single fathers, certainly not single BAME LGBT fathers. So we'd love to hear your perspective of that.
Okay, thank you, Numair. I actually didn't realize it until later on today that it was actually Father's Day today. And I just lost count of the days, really. Been indoors so much, maybe that's why. Being a single dad, anyone who is one would tell you that it's a struggle. And being a Black bisexual father just adds further layer to that difficulty or to that struggle. It includes how the authorities perceive me. Like, for example, I've been stopped on multiple occasions by the police in the UK under false identity, which means they thought I was some other Black guy. So if care wasn't taken or I was arrested at that time, that's my child losing his father because someone thought I looked like somebody else. You know, the authorities even included with social services. They had concern about my child, and they were involved with my child. But the kind of responsibilities, like I had, they didn't really want me to be. They didn't really give me messages because I was single. I was not with my child's mom, so they were kind of like focusing on the child's mom, without really getting me involved. So I have to really go out my way, make some calls. At one point, I made a call, and just to inquire about my child, and apparently I have to show proof that I'm responsible for my child, even though I've been in meetings, even though these people know me. So there's a lot of difficulties being Black bisexual dad. Being a single dad, I say, oh, there's a lot of difficulties, but it's different with that. Raising my child up, though, I don't raise him up thinking about my sexuality. But I really want him to grow up like loving anyone without discriminating out there. I don't raise him up thinking about that. Although I'm worried about my son growing up in a world where people of color are discriminated against, and there is institutional racism, like we all know. What happened recently in America with George Floyd's death at the hands of policemen, racist policemen. I thought that George must be someone else's son as well, you know? And I don't want my son to grow up in a world where the color of his skin puts him in danger. So I really hope by the time he gets to that age, there'll be like a long-term permanent change. And I'm a first-time dad as well, and I haven't had no kids before. So that adds a little bit of difficulty to it as well. But definitely enjoying it. It's like, it was one of my stepping stones to have that responsibility to look after my son. From when he was born, I was in the hospital. I had him in my hands when he was born. You know? So it just, all of that just gave me that motivation to start doing better. I think it was a stepping stone for me having him.
Thanks so much, Mujib. That really was a really powerful story. And I think you've touched upon some really important themes over there. One of which is, of course, certainly in light of George Floyd's death, and we are seeing an eruption of passion, anger, and frustration within the Black community globally. So I will certainly get back to the Black Lives Matter protest, because I know you've been part of that here in Cardiff, so I definitely will come back to that. But you also touched upon the idea that you don't want to raise your son with a specific label attached to your head, because ultimately you're human. And I would like to actually talk about labels as well today. But before we go into a little bit more detail over there, let's get a little more perspective about what it means being LGBT globally. So I'm going to start with you, Alvin, if I may. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience of being LGBT in Saudi Arabia? What was that experience like?
As some of you may already know, to be a member of the LGBTQIA+ community in Saudi Arabia is a crime, punishable by flogging or execution. The law of Saudi Arabia based on the principles of Islam, and they have a Sharia law. This means that members of the LGBTQIA+ community are considered haram. The word haram means an act or something that is so wrong. If you do that thing, you will go to hell. I have had several bad experiences as a trans man while in Saudi Arabia. As a result of this, I tried to find psychiatrists who would support my case. This was really challenging for me. We have a few doctors who support us and believe our stories. But there is not much they can do for us because the government doesn't support or allow people like us to exist.
Thanks, Alvin. And you mentioned the idea of Islamic law and how that
Yeah.
can work against you. You mentioned Jia Wei in Malaysia. You touched upon that as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about that experience for you, growing up in Malaysia?
Yeah, actually, since even though Malaysia is predominantly Islam, we're actually made up of kind of three major big races: Chinese, Malay, Indian, and also the indigenous peoples of Malaysia. So we are actually multicultural, we are multiracial, we are there's a huge cultural melting pot. However, it's also we don't really look upon the LGBT plus community as like we're not really educated on the community, so everybody sees it like it's something that you look down on. So we have even terms for people who look, let's say if you're biologically male and you present to look as female, to look feminine like femme, then people would call you bondan, which is a really not nice kind of slur to actually tell your kids, okay, stay away from that person, or don't mingle with these gays or these lady boys, so to presume. So it's not really accepting. It's not a really accepting community, and as also because of the Sharia law, some of the states are governed by the Sharia law, and we can get a prison sentence or a whipping no matter if you're a man or a woman. And so that is, we had a case, like I think 2 years ago, where there were a lesbian couple who were Muslims, and they were whipped publicly in front of everyone because they just kissed. That's it. Um, so growing up in this environment, it was pretty hard for me, and I had to hide for a lot of my life. And because of that, I grew up as a homophobe, interestingly. So I was being taught that LGBT was unnatural, and I grew up learning to despise anybody who looked gay or, trans. And then little did I know I was actually part of the community of myself, and I was completely in denial, especially when I was 15, when I had my first girlfriend. And we thought that, okay, we made a promise to ourselves that we were just out of the boundary. We were just a little bit more than sisters, not, girlfriends. We were like, okay, let's not go to that side because we were shunned upon. So even though I was from an all-girls school and there were quite a few lesbian couples around, nobody truly identified as gay, and we all believed it was just a phase. So thankfully, because of the internet, I managed to kind of educate myself and kind of actually reach a wider community and learned the terms, the gender identity, the sexuality, and the community all around. And there are actually people like me. So that's why it took 5 years to come out as gay, and then 7 years to actually come out to my family. It was a very big struggle, but thankfully people are starting to understand now. But we are still a work in progress, I would say, for Malaysia.
Thank you so much, Jia Wei. And I just wanted to say how brave it is of you to admit, in all its transparency, the fact that you were a homophobe, and how much time it took to teach yourself out of that phase. And I think the bravery that you've just shown by admitting that, I think, has to be commended. So I really do applaud you for being that honest. Jia Wei, thank you.
I'm not proud of that, honestly, because but it's definitely, yeah, I think education is certainly the key to actually understand and be a true ally, or understanding marginalized communities, honestly.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I know that you are an international student. I certainly will be coming back to that theme as well. But I'd like to now turn to you, Thania, and if you could tell us a little bit about your experience of being raised LGBT in Puerto Rico.
Well, I think, compared to the different countries, it's been a bit protected and privileged. because I think, well, in my microcosm of a family, so I come from a very queer family. My uncles are gay, and then my cousins are gay. So I grew up with my grandmother kind of holding this very safe space, and my uncles were able to come in and have dinner with us and share all the holidays with us. So I think in some aspect, but you know, this is male visibility. I was very protected. Puerto Rico is primarily Catholic Christian, and it also is in a Commonwealth kind of state of law with the United States. So we have federal laws, and then we have our own laws. So it's kind of a dual system. So, and that works, is quite tricky right now, because as the US is kind of peeling back all the LGBT rights, and you know, it's regressing. So it's been quite slow to follow suit. Puerto Rico, you know, equal marriage was legalized at the same time as the United States. So I think in the global sense, it's been a bit behind because of US law, but I think I grew up, there's a lot of gay bars, and you know, there's a scene, and also it's very powerful in terms of its activism. So there's even 2 pride parades, which is really brilliant. So there's a pride parade in the capital in San Juan, and then I'm from the west side of the island, so I'm about 2.5 hours west. So we have our own pride of the west, which ends up in the beach, which is, you know, quite celebrated. But, you know, obviously I think the activism there has to be quite rampant and go against, you know, very traditionalist notions. And there's been a few threats recently to the civil code, which has probably been in the news. So there's some things that are being slipped under the rug while lockdown is in place by politicians, so they can't go through the normal procedures. So it's quite tricky, but I you know, in a sense, there's some beautiful things kind of emerging from that fight. And I think most of the things, I mean, there has been a lot of crime, particularly against trans women. That's been quite rampant as kind of the hate crimes have increased as a result of also kind of the recent administration. And, but I mean, my experience has been mostly in terms of microaggressions and things that are kind of, oh, you say the gay somebody, and I'm like, well, being gay is not really a personality trait, so I'm kind of against that. So, you know, or you say, oh, there's a couple, and you don't say pareja, which would be couple, which is quite non-binary, which is brilliant. It's gender neutral, the term, but then you say friend, so you kind of diminish the fact that 2 people are in a relationship. You say amigo, amiga, and I'm like, I don't really think, you know, so I have to kind of, I feel like when I go back home, I kind of have to challenge some things. Luckily, I have a very supportive peer group down there, and they've been really key in kind of keeping me informed of what's happening. A lot of nonprofit organizations as well for HIV prevention, and so there's things happening over there. But I think in my experience, kind of queer is interesting, because queer actually is also used in Spanish. So I've kind of preferred that identification, because also it has that kind of activism aspect to it, has that political aspect, has a theoretical background to it. So, and I love that it's queer, you know, it's very different, you know, it's the same pronunciation. But yeah, so it's difficult because I've also been 20 years away from my country. And I've lived in 5 different countries. So I was in Argentina at a very key point when equal marriage was passing, and you know, having that, you know, being in those key moments in history has been quite impactful for my own development and my own sense of belonging to the LGBT+ community in a global sense.
Thank you so much, Thania. There's so many important points that you've touched upon there, and I hope we have enough time to flesh them out. But before we really delve into any juicy details, Mujib, would you like to tell us about your experience of being raised in Nigeria as a member of the LGBT community?
Sure. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to show my affection for men I liked in Nigeria. The main reasons behind that is mainly because I was struggling to come to terms of who I was, and I was in hiding. And even if I met a male friend that I liked, it would have to be in secrecy. And even that was putting ourselves at risk. Also, I grew up in a Muslim majority part of Nigeria. And like a few people have touched on, it's governed by Sharia law. It has 14 states of Nigeria and Muslim majority states, and they're still using Sharia law till today. So growing up there, I was exposed to radical ideas in Islam, where being LGBT plus is seen as is a sin, and which is either punishable by death in this life or in the afterlife by hell. So I think that mainly played a major role of like created a conflict in my mind in somewhat by just being myself, really. And I went through the Arabic school. I graduated from the Arabic school, so you can really imagine all of that. With that said, just to add to that, it might not be related to me living in Nigeria as a bisexual man, but it's related to life as an LGBTQ, African LGBTQ, even in the UK and other places. From what I realized, I struggled to be myself, even in the UK, in presence of even other LGBTQ members, you know, in the sense where people already have this idea of what a gay person should look like. And when you're not acting that way, some people are funny about it and they don't like it. Me, generally, I love myself. I like the way I like being myself. You understand? I don't have to do anything extreme. And people that are closer to me, like, we know I'm a bisexual male. And if you ask me, of course, I'm going to tell it to you because I'm more comfortable about it now. But if you're expecting me to act a certain way, then you really not helping the matter out. So why I said that is because a lot of people, I know there's a lot of homosexuality going on in Nigeria, even inside Nigeria, even though it's in extreme secrecy, and you're just putting yourself in danger trying it anyway. But these are people that wants to live freely. These are people that wants to enjoy what they do, but they can't. And then just unfortunately, like coming over to somewhere where it's more freer, there's still that, would I say, barrier, like even in the LGBTQ community, that, yeah, this is how people should act. Just say that there was a friend of mine, a childhood friend, I've had a crush on for a long time, and I just found that he's had a crush on me as well. But we only...
That's ideal, Mujib, that's ideal.
So unfortunately, we've only just saying it to ourselves now. But I just can't imagine what he's going through, really. It's just serious. He's had to repress himself, or his emotions, his way of acting, even to his parents, you know. So it's really, 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 really sad. And the other day, I posted a picture of myself in shorts. He was so excited. He's like, "Oi, you're even taller than me, and you're wearing shorts, mate. If you wear shorts in Nigeria, they'll be looking at you like, who's this guy? Why are you wearing shorts?" What? I was like, what? That's like, I'm sure it's about 45 degrees out there sometimes. You should be wearing bikinis out there if you want to, mate. But it's just sad how the people are thinking. And it's sad. But yeah, that's my life in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Mujib. That was absolutely brilliant. And I really hope you can reach out to your friend. I do, and I hope, and I'm sure, because I know you personally, I know you are a role model. I know you want to be a role model, but you are a role model, and I do believe that you can be there for him I know at a distance, but I really do believe in you, and I believe that you can be there for him, and I hope you will. Now, I think another theme that does exist, because I know each of you personally, I have the great fortune to know every one of you and have interacted with you on multiple occasions, is that many of us over here have claimed asylum, and we are now refugees. So Mujib, myself, and Alvin, we're all refugees. And I know from having interacted with various asylum seekers that can be a fairly traumatic process to all of us. I, for example, have been very fortunate. The process for me was relatively easy. So I'm just curious to know what that experience was like for Mujib and Alvin. And the reason I'm specifically asking this is because not only in light of Brexit, but I think generally this feeling has been simmering in the consciousness of the UK, the idea of what an immigrant is, the idea of what a refugee is. So I'd like to start with you, Alvin, and then I'll move on to you, Mujib. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience of claiming asylum in the UK, Alvin?
Actually, I came from Saudi Arabia to the UK in September 2019, and I claimed asylum at Heathrow Airport. I stayed in London for 4 days, and then they moved me to Cardiff. My claim asylum was accepted on the 30th of February 2020. I know that quite a lot of people can have a really difficult and challenging experience of claiming asylum in the UK. However, I was very lucky because my experience positive one overall. That's it.
Thank you so much, Alvin. And I think, and I think it is important to hear the positive stories, but it's also important to really hear the challenging stories. Mujib, I'd now like to turn to you, please. And keeping in mind that everyone has a certain perception of labels, such as refugee and immigrants.
Yeah.
So what would you like to tell people of Wales and potentially people watching this panel event globally? What would you like to tell them as someone who has claimed asylum and is now a refugee? What would you like to tell them about your experience and what this process was all about?
Thank you, Numair. My experience claiming asylum in the UK hasn't been straightforward. It has been a struggle in terms of the weight of the processes and the financial instability you have to go through. And especially for someone that is trying to get somewhere, you have a career you're looking at to, so it's just been a struggle. I would like to mention two different things that an Home Office official said to me. The first one, when I was in detention center in the van, mentioned I was so down. I was like, excuse me, please, I've got my child out there. He's only a couple of months old, and I'm in here for some days now. I don't know why it's that. I want to go see my son. The man said, we're not here to help you. We're here to send you back home. So I think that kind of mentality is in most people working in the Home Office, even the caseworkers, where I don't want to really differentiate, but from my experience, people from Africa, they're like, oh, wait a minute, especially if you're claiming asylum as an homosexual. It's like, wait a minute, okay. The first thinking is to refuse them, So that's that really. I just want to put that out there. But in light of like you were saying, some people have different perspectives of what a refugee would be like, or why is there refugees really? Why are people coming to my country? The first question I'd like these people to ask themselves is, why would someone like myself, or indeed someone like Numair, leave their home country where everyone they've loved and known resides? And how they leave all that unless their lives is under serious threat? By speaking for myself, I know the level of discrimination, the level of corruption with LGBT plus individuals in Nigeria is so severe. Like, the only way you have to leave is have to hide. I don't deserve to hide. Neither does anyone else. So I also want people of the UK to know, like, they should be proud of their history. They should be proud of their history of providing refuge for LGBT plus individuals. And yeah, these people are escaping persecution. It is not a British issue, it is a humanitarian issue. So they should be proud. They're leading, they're one of the front leaders of this humanitarian issue, and they should need to do more. Also, I understand the Home Office, while dealing with all these asylum claims, they have a huge tax in their hands to actually filter between the genuine cases and the fraudulent cases. But there's still a lot more to do, as the time with the process an asylum claim is far too long. Some of us, some people are 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, no matter where you're from, what country, no matter what the case is, it shouldn't take 3 years, it shouldn't take 5 years, it shouldn't take 6 years. Some people are waiting 9 years on asylum process. That means you can't work, you can't go to school, a lot of limitations. For me, my asylum process took about 3 years in total. At one point, waiting for an interview, 8 months. I was running around. I had to go to MP Joe Cox. Yeah, is it? No, sorry, I don't want to say the wrong name. Pardon me, Joe Stephen in Cardiff. Yeah, that's the one. So I had to go there and ask for help. I've been waiting 8 months, and they contacted the Home Office, and then I got an interview after that. So the process takes long. The case workers, they become overburdened with cases. And most worryingly, some of the case workers are not properly trained. You see? So I also want the people to know that refugees, who have claimed asylum, I'm a refugee now, refugees such as myself, such as Numair, who is a bioscientist, Abdurrahim, who is an artist and a community entertainer, like, are giving back to the community. So they are valuable members of the community. They're giving back to the community regularly. They're valuable members of the community that should be loved, protected, and supported. I just hope people get that.
Thank you so much, Mujib. I think you've said such wonderful things, and I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said it's not just a UK issue, this is a global issue. It's a humanitarian issue, and we should all be concerned about this, whether we're LGBT or not, just if you care about human life. So thank you so much. That was such a powerful thing to say.
Thank you.
And on the theme of being international, I'm very keen to hear your perspective, Jia Wei, as an international student. And then perhaps after that, Thania, if you'd like to tell us a little bit, because there are so many hats that you don. On the one hand as a clinician, on the other hand as an artist, and then as a lecturer and in higher education, it would be nice to sort of make that connection between you, Jia Wei, as an international student, and then you, Thania, as an international lecturer. So we'll start with Jia Wei. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience of being an international LGBT student here in Wales?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, being an international student, like especially an LGBT plus international student, I came to Wales knowing that it's more accepting. It's more accepting generally in Britain. But I didn't actually put any expectations. I didn't put like a level of expectation on it because I was having the fear that people would still judge when I still came here. But the moment I stepped into university and I came into the Freshers Fair and I saw the LGBT plus society stand, I actually cried because I have never been actually fully accepted truly with open arms in a community of people like me who are actually talking about gender and sexuality without any fear of judging at all. And the thing is, sexuality wasn't the main thing that defined me. They saw me as a person, not as somebody who is non-binary, not somebody as gay, but as me, Jia Wei, and I'm not defined by my own sexuality at all. They can be like, oh, you're gay? Cool, let's be friends, that kind of thing. So I'm very, very happy when I first came here. So my experience as an international student in Wales has been nothing but just positivity, from gay clubs in Cardiff, drag shows, people not just accepting but seeing me as me. That is just beautiful. And so finding even this community in Glitter, it's all kind of telling me that, hey, it's okay to be completely who you are. So it is very reaffirming, and I think this is the stone which is in my heart, it just completely just shattered. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Jia Wei. If you were anywhere near me, I would hug you, but I'm not sure that's allowed. I mean,
I would love to hug you back.
That's wonderful. Honestly, I'm sending you such a virtual hug. That's melted whatever stones are in my heart. Not that I'm suggesting there are, but whatever may have remained have certainly melted out of that, Jia Wei. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And if I could just very quickly, Jia Wei, you mentioned the idea of labels. I know there are a few labels that you identify with. Has that been a struggle?
Yeah.
Because I know we are living in an era where there are a lot of labels, and I fully appreciate that labels can give us a sense of community. Has that been a struggle for you? Could you just sort of quickly touch upon that?
Labels, actually, I believe that labels are there to actually empower people. It empowers especially marginalized and misunderstood communities. So it gives these people a voice and allows them or us to be seen. So just like, let's say if I am gay and then there's a whole bunch of people who are straight, or maybe as in they are not, nobody really understands the concept of LGBT a lot enough to uh, like kind of fully comprehend what is gay, what is straight, and is gay a bad thing or is gay a good thing. So if you are saying that, okay, I am gay, but I am as normal as all of you, and gay is a label to kind of empower me, saying that I am gay, I like girls, or I am gay, I like guys, but there are people who exist like me, and I'm not the only one. So it brings people who resonate with each other together, and it enables people to realize that they are not the only one, and there is a whole community out there. So this is where labels are very empowering. But now I think if I were to introduce myself, I don't really say that, okay, I'm Jia Wei, I'm gay, I'm non-binary. I usually just say that, hey, I'm Jia Wei, I like to make videos, I like to do parkour, that kind of thing. So I want to introduce myself as me, as an individual, being uniquely me, and I don't want to let labels define of how I should be, how I should act as a so-called stereotypically gay person or something like that, because I want to let the world see that you can be gay no matter how how you are, just like how Mujib says that everybody has a perception of how bisexual should act or something, but as long as you're you, and then no matter what your labels are, as long as you're you, you're unique and you are amazing. So I wouldn't use labels currently, because I think everybody is unique and everybody can be anything they want, as long as they don't harm anybody. However, I would definitely use labels when I believe labels can empower a certain situation.
Thank you so much, Jia Wei. I think that's such an important point. The idea is that you use the labels when and if you feel they are needed, and beyond that. And I love the idea that you think that you're so much more than a label as well. I think that's a really powerful statement. So thank you so much, Jia Wei. And just to sort of extend the first bit about your experience as an international student, Thania, because you've done, you've done so many hats, and because, you have traveled the world and you truly do have a global perspective, one of the first questions I'd like to ask you actually is, what do you think are some of the key challenges faced by the BAME LGBT community today?
Wow, that's a huge question.
It is, I know, I am slightly putting you on the spot, but I know that you are well traveled and I know you've experienced a lot. So I'm very keen to hear what your perspective is on this.
Well, the first reaction that I have, I mean, obviously hearing these stories from everyone in the panel, I mean, it's just so moving that you've overcome so much for being able to live your truth. And living your truth is tricky, isn't it? Because sometimes it has consequences. And sometimes it's even living your own truth and accepting that to yourself is indeed a challenge. I think Jia Wei touched a little bit upon that we are people first. And that's been one of the things that I found quite challenging, because when I was in Argentina and when I was in Scotland, thanks to this label, right, I was able to access different organizations and access a community group, and as always being the other, the foreigner, the person that shows up, and the newbie, which I've gotten really good at, just going, oh, hi, hey, I'm the new one again, because my career has just been, following the next job or the next opportunity. So what's happened, is me going in and having an alliance with an organization has given me this kind of platform to be able to do other things. For example, in Scotland, I was collaborating with an art therapist, and we started doing groups for the trans community, and that was really beautiful for me to be a trans ally and also go, okay, right, I am cis, I am queer, but I'm here to learn, and I'm here to share, and let's look at this journey of accepting our body and, you know, embracing the battles that it brings, because there's so many battles that we have, right, regardless of our gender identity or sexual orientation. There's been a couple of things for me. It's been about training as well. I've done a lot of training on gender identity and sexual orientation for clinicians and for therapists, and for students as well. Just knowing is one of the biggest challenge. And also because our community has such an evolving language and changing so quickly, that sometimes we become outdated very quickly. Or something that you said is now, okay, that's not okay anymore. And so it's quite difficult even for us within the community. So it's even harder for people who are trying to, you know, really understand and connect with us, but it is quite challenging. So a lot of the things have been about creating safe spaces. I think there needs to be more safe spaces. That's been something across the countries that I've been in. Also, this idea about visibility, I've had a similar challenge to Jia Wei in that sense of, right, I arrived to USW and they were like, oh, right, you're a part of the LGBT community. Great, we have a great staff network called Spectrum. And they were like, okay, so you're gonna become a role model. I was like, wait, hold on a second. No, first I can't say role model without rolling my eyes. So can we say staff representative or something that and they're like, okay, so you're gonna speak and you're gonna do a video on this, and you're gonna do trans ally video, and then you're gonna talk about it. And all of a sudden, my professional realm and my personal realm, and then I started creating this piece, Mixology, which was about this experience of difficulty and pansexuality and bisexuality and people's difficulty with it within the LGBT community. So all these things started to stack up, and I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean to be visible and for your professional identity to kind of be part of that? Because I also, you know, when people meet me, I have other things that I want to get across, and there are other things about me that I really prioritize. So that I think that's another challenge, you know, this idea of there's a pressure for visibility, and there's an importance held in being a model, and you know, showing other people, like people in this panel who've been like, I've overcome this is amazing, you know, really challenging, but I'm willing to put myself out there and put myself in public to share my story, which is so hard, you know, and it's with sometimes such difficult consequences in a way. So I think I would probably say that, you know, the idea of being in a university gives me a privilege that I don't take for granted. I wish, you know, and then I found Glitter Cymru, but I found Glitter this year, and I've been here in Wales. I've been 4 years, so I found a community a bit easier, I think, in Scotland, because, you know, they were like, okay, right, you're international, blah, blah, let's do this, let's do all these things. And Wales is taking a bit longer, which is a bit challenging as well. But I think I'm like that, you know. I think this the Puerto Rican, like we persist and we persevere, regardless of, for better or for worse, we will always persevere. And as a member of a, you know, Latinx community, like we're always looking for our people. We're sociocentric. I think like most countries that are here, like we're sociocentric. We want families. We prioritize networks and communities, you know, not the individual. So I think that there is something about embracing internationality, particularly in Wales. I think there's more to be done, to not be other, to not be exotic. I've had to have a lot of conversations about the word exotic, because a lot of people say, oh, you're from Puerto Rico, okay. Oh, wow, that's too exotic. And I'm like, okay, let's just leave exotic for plants and for fruits, not for people. Because exotic essentially means non-white. I mean, we don't say, you know, Ireland is exotic. We don't say, you know, Germany is exotic, right? So there's all these little things that I think need to start opening up. That other is good, because other challenges who you are, your point of view, and it also expands your horizon. We need to be able to have different perspectives so that we're able, you know, our life is not a square and our life is not a line. It's a prism that has many, many different sides. And the more sides we're able to see through, then the more of a human being we can be.
I really love that, Thania. I love the fact that you're saying that we're prisms and we have different sides to us. I really do like that description of human beings. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Thania. And that attention to detail is so impressive, which is exactly what I expected from you. And I think you've touched on so much detail there. That's so much importance. And I wish this conversation could go on for hours, because I'd pick your brain some more. But Alvin, I'm very keen to actually hear what your experience is like as a trans man here in Wales. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What your experience has been like?
Yeah, I like this question. I consider myself so lucky to be a part of the Welsh people. Overall, I have felt the Welsh people respect queer people because they are human. They don't focus on or mind the person's identity or sexuality. I really do find nice people here in Cardiff. I find they smiling at me all the time and very helpful. I truly love everything here in Cardiff.
Oh, thank you so much, Alvin. That's really wonderful. That
Yeah.
really has made me smile, and I can see from the rest of the panel members, you made all of us smile. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to smile at you, Alvin. Thank you so much. And I'd like to extend that theme a little bit. Could you, because I know one of the challenges that trans people face are the healthcare services. So could you tell us a little bit about what your experience has been like with the healthcare services here in Wales, or the UK in general?
Yeah. Because I'm living in Wales, as you know.
Yeah.
So I know only about the Wales. Okay. Actually, in my case, I'm extremely lucky also because I have had a good experience with a great doctors. Really, I want to highlight the support of Dr. Simon Brayborg and the Gender Clinic and Dr. Sophie Queenie from the Welsh Gender Service. But I do think we need to pay more attention on surgeries and psychological health services based on my experience in Cardiff. I would like it if surgeries could be performed here in Wales. As some of you may know, most surgeries related to trans people will be conducted in England, and the waiting list is really long. That's it.
Thank you so much, Alvin. I think that's a really important point, the idea that, you know, more surgeries need to be based in Wales, because, you know, the waiting list can be, you know, horrendously long. I think that's a really, really important point. And Mujib, I'd like to ask a similar question for you. Is that what has your experience been like of being a bisexual man here in Wales?
Okay. Wales, Cardiff, Wales. I've only been in Cardiff. It's actually, there's a lot of good things actually. Yeah, I've had good and bad experiences of being LGBT plus. One of the good experiences, how I was able to access a general practitioner, GP. I've lived in the UK for 8 years in total now. So it was only when I moved down to Wales 4 years ago, I was able to access a GP. I was even comfortable enough to get a GP, not afraid of what the Home Office might do to me. So that on its own was, I was able to talk about my mental health, and then I was able to talk to a psychologist in Cardiff and Vale College, which was, that was when I started being more open about my sexuality. It was actually playing on my mind all the time. And from then on, it's just like positive. Yeah, another positive experience is me being able to witness other people from other ethnicities here in Cardiff, like being open about their sexuality, being free, you know, so being comfortable with it, really. And this is how I discovered Glitter Cymru, where I met people from my background that have already come to terms with their sexuality. Yeah, I was able to study. I was able to meet a lot of people that I would look up to and would make me want to be a better version of myself. So a lot of positive. As for the negatives, yeah, I can't really think. Yeah, I don't want to say when I can't really think of any. Yeah, I can't really relate any negative thing to living in Wales, but maybe in life struggles in general, like seeking asylum in Wales was a struggle. Trying to be financially stable in Wales was a struggle, and yeah, just being a bisexual Black single dad in Wales was a struggle. So apart from that, it's more on a good note for me in Wales, in Cardiff, Wales.
Thank you so much, Mujib. And because I know you attended the Black Lives Matter protest here in Cardiff, and because we are seeing a surge of Black pride all over the world, could you tell us how you're feeling about that now? What was that experience like for you, say, with the Black Lives Matter protest here in Cardiff?
Yeah, with the protest specifically, or with the Black Lives Matter in general?
Well, it's up to you, really. You can talk about both. You can talk about the protests if you want. You can talk about Black Lives Matters. You can talk about how you feel. It's entirely up to you. I'm sort of intentionally leaving this a little bit open-ended for you. Okay. So anything you'd like to talk about, we're happy to hear.
Yes, it's connected anyway, because I was at the protest for the Black Lives Matter, so I was just gonna start with that. It's yeah, I'll say it's the first time I've actually felt all my emotions emerge over a serious issue. You know, I was angry, I was sad. At the same time, I cried, I yelled, you know. However, the feeling I'm going to take out of it is the feeling of empowerment as a Black man, and the feeling of hope, actually, that there will be long-term change with continuous protest, though. This protest has to continue in every way possible, not just the people. The protesters are not just the people on the street going around rioting with banners and everything. Protesters are people, a lot of people behind their keyboard, posting things, educating people about these marginalized communities that have been, which in this term is the Black community. And you know how I feel about labeling anyway, Numair. I don't want to go into it now. If not, I'll just take your whole time labeling the. I've heard a lot from Jia Wei and Thania as well about the labels. We used to be called queer as the LGBTQ community. Now it's all sorts, LGB. Where are we going to stop until we get to Z? You know. But what about Black? Like, why are we being termed Black? Why can you call me African instead of using Black? You know, Black as in when you owe people money, they put you in the Black list. That's already depicting Black as a bad thing. You know, so why are we proud of calling ourselves that? So that's kind of like yeah, that for that. But I felt like that, like the feeling now that I'm going to take out of it, like I said, is that empowerment and hope that there'll be long-term change. That's it. About speaking. Yeah, like I said, I was overwhelmed with emotions, so much different emotions. So like me speaking at the Black Lives Matter, it was just a way of me putting out my emotions out there and speaking of our field, or I've been treated as a Black person, and I felt like I needed to speak. I was nervous at first because there was a rock in the middle where the speakers would go climbing in and speak to 1,000 people, 1,000 plus people there. That was the first time I've spoke to that much people, you know. So I was nervous, but after I started speaking and finished speaking, I felt this power. At least one or two people have taken something home. There was a lot of youths there, you know. One or two people have taken something home from what I've had to say. I also felt love. Like I felt this connection from every single one of the people there. Like, yeah, these people are listening to me. These people are connecting to the speakers. These people are here because something's happened. This is not just about the racist policemen in the US anymore. This is historical, institutional racism. I felt that love, like I was connected to everybody there. I also felt proud. Yeah, I felt proud. Very proud that I was able to organize myself and other people, actually, because I went with few other people, which we I organized for us to meet at United Reformed Church in Windsor Place. We made some signs, and then we walked down there together, and they were very happy that they could come. And this included white and Black people. I'm going to use black people, but so they felt like very happy to come. So I felt proud about that, like organizing myself to go there and other people as well. But yeah, that was basically how I felt.
Thank you so much, Mujib. And I think because I am conscious of time, and trust me, if I had my way, I could carry on talking to each of you for hours. But I want to sort of stick to the theme you brought up, Mujib, of pride. And I would like to ask a single question to all of you, and I'm very curious to hear the diversity of answer, is we are in Pride season, of course, as I'm sure you all are aware. So I would like to ask, the final question for all of you is, there we are, Thania, there we are. Yes, indeed. I mean, yeah, I think we're all to some extent wearing something. I know as you as well, Alvin, I can see that we are all Cuban. I can see the pride colors there. Absolutely, yeah. And of course, I'm wearing this rather gaudy vest as well. However, the final question that I'd like to ask all of you is, what does pride mean to all of you? We are in Pride season, so I think that's a worthy question. And I'd like to start by asking you, Jia Wei, what does pride mean to you?
I think pride is an affirmation and a celebration of that, like showing that we are here, we do exist, and we are definitely not going to go away. And it's like a thankful and grateful celebration to the allies, to the people who support us, and even though, let's say, your community might not be supporting, there is a whole range of people out there celebrating pride, celebrating you. So I think that is so empowering, and knowing that you can be absolutely who you are. And I think pride gives that meaning to all the LGBT plus people in this whole wide world, and gives them permission to be themselves completely. So that is the most precious thing about pride for me.
Thank you, Jia Wei, that was brilliant. Alvin, what does pride mean to you?
Actually, the Pride Month it was one of my dreams. Okay, this the first Pride Month. I'm free and who I want to be, you know. And a Pride Month for me is month for exist as who you are, and also proud of yourself. That's it.
Thank you so much, Alvin. That was simple, and that was beautiful. Thania.
As people were speaking, I had this image of Atlas, you know, the myth of the, maybe it would be Atlas with a little disco ball.
Disco ball.
Because it has obviously it has a dual purpose. I mean, it is about identifying that you're not alone. It is about knowing that we are collective, but it's also carrying That's why I use that image of the disco ball, carrying the disco ball of all the people who haven't been able to live their truth and who haven't been able to march or haven't been able to come out for whatever reason it can be, because all the reasons are valid. Yeah. Or the people who are perpetually coming out, which is another task that repeats and repeats and repeats, which is very difficult. So I think for Pride has that sense of, that's why we march, that's why we walk forward. There's a goal in place, and that goal has many different points in universe. But also, yeah, that responsibility, you know, it's not coincidentally, you know, it's carrying that Puerto Rican flag, you know, that is part of that. Having, you know, before, you know, because here, for example, I don't even have a box. There's no Latin, like South America, Central America, Latinx people don't even have a box in the UK. Like, we're not even considered. A whole continent is completely like, we're not part of any form or any statistics. So that's one of my dreams, that changes. So when I'm able to march in Pride here, you know, I carry that with me.
Thank you so much, Thania. That was absolutely wonderful. Mujib, would you like to tell us what Pride means to you?
Yeah, yes, I would like to, Numair. To me, it means love as LGBT plus individuals and their allies meet to celebrate in unity and in one belief. It also means power, as LGBT plus individuals can now visibly be themselves in public. This is a huge success from the injustices LGBT plus individuals have had to endure over the years. So I think it's the way forward. So it gives us that power. And also, personally, I have a connection to Pride, as it was one of the first places I was able to express myself freely. So I see it as a safe space for me. In 2012, I and some of my other male friends were invited to the London Gay Pride. Yeah, that was in 2012. I didn't go, my friends went. Mainly because I was worried about what people that saw me were going to think. But ever since, I've been to several gay prides. So yeah, I love going to gay prides. I've been with a couple with you, Numair, as well. The first BAME Pride in Cardiff, organized by Glitter Cymru. So it's just been amazing from then. Pride means a lot to me.
Thank you so much, Mujib. Yes, we have attended quite a few prides together, and I certainly haven't forgotten that. And here's to many more that I'm sure we will attend together, virtually or in person. Unfortunately, our time for this panel is coming to an end, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you for being part of this panel. And I really just wanted to emphasize some of the key themes that have come up time and again. We've all come from different parts of the world. We've all traveled to different parts of the globe. And yet, when we talk about being LGBT today, a global perspective, the terms that we keep hearing are terms like love, hope, strength, pride, bravery, resilience. And how can't anyone, no matter how they identify, not relate with that? I think there is indeed a great message of hope over there. And I just personally want to say, as chair for today's panel event, just how honored and blessed I am to know all of you personally. And you all are, and I know some of you may roll your eyes at this, I do consider you role models and people to look up to. I'm sorry, Thania, but I really do. I genuinely consider you all to be extraordinary people. And last but by no means least, I must thank LGBT Cymru for providing us with this platform so we could amplify our voices. And here's to many more such conversations about being LGBT today. Thank you all so much. And I really hope the viewers enjoyed this. Thank you. Right, so that brings